Hello, it is another Write Once, Read Many. This time with Vic.
Yes, this is our Lost fan podcast where we watch Lost in chronological order and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Vic has never seen Lost before, so she'll have a lot of guessing to do up until we get to the 2000s.
I'm very confused.
Yeah. I mean, the ancient stuff is the weirdest stuff, so...
Yeah.
Anyway. We're going to be talking about famed chapter of Lost, 22.y.
The long interlude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my I'll just talk about the art for a second. Here's my lung dragon, okay?
I forgot to get the link out there. Keep
Lung
going.
is like clearly supposed to represent some like his name kind of refers to it's like the dragon emperor or the dragon king or whatever are called lung dragons in Chinese culture, and then it kind of like filtered over into Japanese culture as well. And they the emperor dragons can breathe fire, but that is like not their thing. They're like elementals, right? Like they all have like full elemental powers. It's not like they're fire based or water based or whatever, right? They're all of it. So it's fine. It was also like very difficult to find information on all of this. Like I don't know if it's probably like a lot of it hasn't been translated over, or they'll be translated over in different spellings. Like lung was spelled Loong a lot of the time, and then I was like, oh my god, are we supposed to be pronouncing this lung? But I couldn't bear to face that reality.
That might be. Well, I'm not sure that it is Loon, because, I mean, like, I had a friend whose name was Darlon, and, like, more or less, that just translated to dragon, as far as I know.
Okay.
Well,
so it might be more
you know
like
what?
lung.
I might have gotten scammed. I think that he said that, and I believed it because Kevin also said it, and Kevin also spoke Chinese. But there is a chance I got scammed.
No, that sounds right. Like it was spelled like long and then loong and then lung. Like there was lots of different spellings. I mean, it makes sense because they use a different alphabet than us. So when you translate it over, it's just gonna look different. But yeah, and then you can see Leviathan here is represented by the Japanese water dragon, and he's pretty sick.
Yep.
So yeah,
Greg is in the audience now, which is good. That happened a minute or two ago, but
hello, Greg, and you can watch me draw scales for fucking 3 hours.
yeah.
Oh, it takes so long, and I didn't even do that good of a job. Imagine if I had tried harder.
It would have taken so long if I tried harder.
It would have taken so long. So long.
You know, these dragons do make me think of the Dragon Ball Z opening and or ending in which Rock the Dragon would play. Are you familiar with the song Rock the Dragon?
I don't think so, but I have seen episodes of Dragon Ball Z have played in my vicinity, and so I might recognize it if I heard it.
It's this incredible like rock song that was put on like the American version. I do not think Rock the Dragon was in the original Japanese version of.
I can't imagine it was.
But it is, to put it in terms I've heard it described before, it whips ass.
Yeah.
So
the dragon. Yeah, these these dragons are rocking. Also, it was something I learned was that emperor dragons have 5 fingers and non-emperor dragons have 4 fingers. And and then it seemed like the Japanese dragons had mostly 3 fingers. So I was hard pressed to figure out how to draw those because they don't have thumbs.
I think that the dragons from Zelda kind of have the three claw, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's sort of a dangly 3 claw.
Yeah. I've seen I saw a lot of those in my cursory research.
Oh my god. There we go.
And look, they're like in the ocean fighting,
Yeah.
They're about to kiss.
Probably.
Do you ship Lung and Leviathan?
This is the real question.
These are the real questions. Lung is Lung is definitely the only character that could handle Leviathan. Maybe Alexandria and Leviathan.
Probably. Maybe. What about Behemoth?
You ship. Okay, like
I
yeah,
don't ship them,
we could
but
definitely
like
ship the end. We could ship the Endbringers together. But I feel like I like Behemoth more with some of the characters that will be later.
okay.
Some of the big baddies.
So, the audience participation question was, what is your favorite vignette from this chapter and why?
Mm-hmm.
We have gotten no answers, so hopefully we will get.
It's okay. I have an answer.
That's good. We'll talk about it later, though. Themes. You have written down several. These ones, I feel like this chapter was very.
This is very theme heavy.
Theme.
We got lots and lots of identity, personal identity, like individuality and freedom to be oneself. And then like Lung also like due to his mindset and the mindset that like contributed to his power, because he does have a physical trigger, one of the only ones we see.
Yeah.
But picking your battles and biding time, and that's not only for like physical battles, but like mental and emotional battles, and conversationally as well. He utilizes silence a ton in this chapter, and it's really interesting. He's got a really unique voice. So, was there anything else that you picked up on? I think that's it. Like, he's so focused on himself and his individuality and getting to do what he wants to do. And
there are themes, I think, that are touched on in this chapter of the overall work, even though I wouldn't describe them as themes of this chapter. And what I'm referring to is the conversation between Bakuda and Lung about, like, using fear to control people. Because, like, I don't think that is a theme of this chapter, but I think it's, like, clearly, like, touching that ley line of stuff that the book has.
Right. Like, we definitely, from this chapter, we get like the sweet side of Lung. Like, we're not focusing too heavily on like the like actual horrible stuff that he does. So if that were the case, then it might be more of a theme. But yeah, they at least talk about the way that he utilizes fear, and the fear of the known and the fear of the unknown against people, and that trickles. He tells Bakuda about that, and that trickles over to Taylor.
Yeah. And then I was also thinking in identity, there's like the loss of identity for like Trickster and stuff, and
oh yeah,
and all of the teacher scene has like the loss of identity, loss of individuality, etc.
Yeah, it's definitely even a theme around Lung. It isn't necessarily like just something that he's kind of pushing from his own head. Like, there's many times when that loss of identity is people are like trying to push that onto him or take away his identity, and he's like aware of it happening with the young Bong, and and with teacher
He's aware of it
and
happening both times, and he's willing to gamble that he can slip the noose, basically.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I thought this one was, like I said, it's pretty theme heavy, but it also is like Lung just has this like really distinct voice and like really clear ideas of what he wants personally.
I can see why the Yang Band would want to loop Lung's power in, because imagine if in Arc 24 they all started shape-shifting
Getting
into
bigger.
Dragon Mans.
Yeah, especially like getting stronger during battle, having like minor healing abilities and having resistance to like
Flame.
fire and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Um, I think we're good to jump into the chapter summary.
Okay, cool. So we start March 1997, 2 years before Victoria is born.
It's so funny because,
Um,
like, part of how I thought of this was, oh, isn't this 2 years after Taylor was born?
yeah.
I didn't look up the exact timeline, but yeah.
So Kenta, our main character, and his buddies are out on the town breaking rules. They're in high school, but they have kind of like a gang situation, and they're planning on earning a reputation for themselves and all joining the Yakuza. And then Daichi is their leader. Ren is his lieutenant. And then there's Kenta and like 7 other nobodies that we don't care about. Okay.
Yeah, there's like
And they
nine
all,
nine dudes, 2 with powers, 1 is Kenta, 6 other guys.
yeah. So they all head up the stairs. They're going to a restaurant on the 3rd floor of this building, and Daichi says there's going to be 2 Chinese men, according to his cousin who owns the building. So Kenta, he does lead the way, even though he's not like a main member of the group. And he kicks down the door, and he does find that there's the 2 Chinese businessmen there. They're kneeling by some cash and many bricks of white powder. But there is also a Japanese man there sitting at the table, and then there's a black woman and a supposedly white woman. And the black woman is talking,
A
and
supposedly
the
white woman, an Italian
well,
American woman.
they said, oh, there's a black woman and a woman with a European cast to her features, and I'm like, what? Is she white or is this something else?
I think she's
So
supposed to be white, but with slightly darker skin, like
yeah,
Italian.
I assume that she's like Italian-ish or Spanish or something. I've always assumed that about for no reason about Contessa. Um, so the black woman speaks, and she's translated by the Japanese man into Chinese, and she says that her bodyguard's gonna take care of this. So Kenta translates for Daichi, and Daichi just draws a gun and aims it towards the bodyguard. He fires a warning shot, but the
Kenta can
lady doesn't
speak
even
Chinese, I
react.
think. I'm just trying to think of the situation, but then they rely on somebody else when they start speaking English.
Um, Sorry, what did you say?
So I think, does Kenta only know Chinese and Japanese, and then there's this other guy who talks when they speak in English?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
so whenever the doctor and Contessa talk, then the Japanese man is translating into Chinese, and then Kenta is translating into Japanese for his crew.
Yeah, but then there's like an alternate guy translating English into Japanese for them.
Um,
Because that'll be in the quote just here.
okay.
Which only occurred to me on this read through. I don't know why. I just never
Yeah.
caught that before.
There's a lot of languages being spoken.
All
And different
3.
people who can and can't understand them. So, yeah, so Daichi fires a warning shot, and the bodyguard doesn't even react. So Daichi activates his power, and a phantom replica of himself kind of busts out and runs towards the bodyguard. It's like stronger and faster than him, and it's green. The bodyguard throws a plate at the real Daichi's face, and when it hits it, it successfully dissipates his phantom. So Daichi fires his gun again, and the bodyguard seemingly blocks the shot with a knife from the table. And then I have this quote.
"The woman in the suit just got permission to kill us," Hisoka said. "But the black one said not to spill any blood." "We should run," Kenta said. "You scared?" Daichi asked. "We have muscle." "So does she," Kenta retorted. Daichi only smirked.
Kenta is like just so reasonable in this scene, and it's like, you guys are so stupid.
Yeah.
He like, as soon as Contessa, it's not even like the moment Contessa does anything cool. It's like the moment he sees that she's not scared of them. He's like, we need to leave. This is not a good situation, and he can immediately tell that. But nobody else. Everyone else is a lot more confident. I
Daichi
guess,
wouldn't
in
have made
themselves.
it with his powers anyway. Like, the way they act in this scene, if they just, like, were fighting other parahumans later, they'd be fucked.
Yep, they're dipshits, and also Ren's power is really bad.
Yeah.
It's really it makes me laugh. But so yeah, Ren activates his power. And he's like inhales Kirby style, like he can just inhale an infinite amount, and small objects are kind of like flying towards him, and his suction gets stronger and stronger as he goes. So the bodyguard kicks up one side of the table so that the dishes and powder bricks kind of start rolling towards him with his power. And Daichi just starts open firing, but the bodyguard is just too cool, and she does a bunch of like casual trick shots to like block and avoid them.
Yeah. I
And
think it says, like, she raises a knife to guard the doctor, but that aside from that, she just stands there.
she just like kind of like walks away. So Daichi creates another phantom and gets a table launched at it. It like takes out a chunk of the phantom before hitting Ren. So Ren switches from suction to blow mode.
From
But
suck
the
to blow.
bodyguard, yeah, I did write that later. But the bodyguard redirects the flying table that kind of flies back at her. And I have a quote here.
Well, the quote is, "Suck!" Daichi shouted. "Don't!" Kenta said, though there was little point.
So the time between the sucking and the blowing changeover gives the bodyguard an opportunity to close in the distance. And one of the Daichi phantoms starts attacking the bodyguard at top speed, but it just can't even land a blow. She's so fucking cool.
She's so
So
cool,
the bodyguard the bodyguard kicks a powder brick into the air and it hits Daichi in the head again, which makes his phantoms dismiss again. And then she kicks a table into Ren's shins and he is down.
Yeah. The others push forward from behind Kenta. Had they not just seen the fight? They really thought they'd accomplished something? But the force of the others charging forward from behind started him moving forward, and he was driven to keep advancing by the vague, incoherent idea of what might happen to him if he, the largest, physically strongest member of Daichi's group, turned coward.
Yeah. So the bodyguard just beats the shit out of them. Kenta specific, she's like beating them all up at once, but Kenta specifically, she hits in the diaphragm, and then when he like leans over to, she shoves his head down into one of the powder bricks.
Eat
And his
drugs,
teeth,
kid.
yeah, do drugs. This is the peer pressure that they were telling you about in school.
Yeah. You know, the way they framed it when I was in school, and it's funny because, like, I hear this from this podcaster I think I really like, is basically just like, people were going to come up and try and make you do drugs with them and stuff, and it's like, if someone thinks you're a square, they're not going to come up and force you to do drugs with them. That's not... It's not how
Yeah,
it works.
but also then you would reject it, and then they'd be like, "Okay, square." not talk to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did such a bad job conveying what peer pressure is. Anyways, Kenta gets peer pressured into the saran wrap and his teeth like puncture it, and so the powder when Kenta like tries to turn his head and cough, the powder explodes back into his face. And the bodyguard's still on top of, she's like standing on top of him, and he's just completely suffocating with this powder caked all over his nose and mouth. So he's hit by the high and he realizes he's having a heart attack. But then all of a sudden, there's a quote here.
He was an observer, without a body or mind. He couldn't think. He could only exist as part of some sequence of events. Two entities communicating as they drew closer, or as they drew together. Two entities each unfolding and folding through multiple worlds at the same time. Two entities singing ideas through mediums he could barely comprehend, through light and heat and space and half-lives and gravity. And they were looking at a planet, a world of perpetual storms. There were life forms in there, life forms in countless possible variations of that world. Bloated bags of gas that flowed through and in the storms in kaleidoscopic patterns. He could see what they were focusing on, see them examining those possible worlds, declaring something, ownership here, claim there, territory elsewhere.
Okay, Taylor, pop off. So
As a gas bag, she would totally pop off.
my territory. So the bodyguard had staggered away and was being supported by the other woman. Kenta turns to see that Ren and Daichi are also incapacitated, but they're recovering a lot slower than the bodyguard, who goes over and kicks them both very hard in the face. And Kenta just pretends to still be dying as the woman finishes up their deal with the Chinese men and she leaves. And the entire gang is dead except for one, and Kenta holds his hand as he slowly passes away. So that's our first little vignette, and
Little long.
I thought very good. So now we're November 1999, and I am 6 months old.
Ooh.
So, woohoo! That was a good time for me. Lung is at a Leviathan attack, and he is biding his time. So as he anticipates the fight, his power builds up, and he watches as Eidolon and Leviathan are duking it out. The heroes are winning, but just slowly. And we know that, I mean, like from context clues, this is Japan, and we know that Japan like got obliterated during this fight, right?
Yeah,
Like
this island did.
modern day parahumans doesn't this whole island went down. So
Yeah.
he so Lung is like watching the fight, and when he thinks to himself that he's gonna fight, he begins changing, and so he heads towards Leviathan, and he's pretty determined not to lose. Uh, he's very confident
Mm-hmm.
that he's gonna do well here. So Alexandria joins in on the fight, and she like pulls Leviathan into the sky by his tail and drops him, which is very funny. It was a crazy thing to do because it takes out so many of the capes with his like a huge tidal wave.
Yeah. I think that she was just doing what she could do and like didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
she just
that
was.
it's that thing of like at a certain point with Leviathan there's water in every direction, so like what do you
Yeah,
do?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Yeah. So it causes like a huge wave and it rolls over Lung, but he is left suffocating, which triggers his fire and he starts evaporating the water around him.
And the thing that made him
Sure.
decide to go into the fight, I think, is important. It's that, like, just Leviathan was distracted and like tearing apart a building, and he's like, "Oh, he's distracted for like 1 second. Better start like walking in." So
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. That it was just like such a minor thing.
He is. We'll talk about it later, but Lung is really funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, after another hit, Lung is finally strong enough and he runs up towards Leviathan, and I have a quote here.
He struck Leviathan and was struck in turn, his bones broken, internal organs smashed. He very nearly blacked out, but his rage won out. He struggled to his feet, found one femur in two distinct pieces. He knelt instead, resting his weight on one knee, the other foot planted on the ground, taloned toes biting into asphalt, and he directed a constant stream of flame, or of fire, at the Endbringer. A flick of Leviathan's tail sent him sprawling.
So Lung is already starts healing up again and stands and he like rudely ignores another cape that tries to help him up. Leviathan charges and knocks Lung to the side, and then Lung charges back at him, and he's like on all fours now and like a third of Leviathan's size, and he like grabs onto Leviathan by his injuries. So Leviathan starts like swimming but just can't knock Lung off. He's like clawing away at the flesh basically, while he's attached to him. And when he rises out of the water, he's finally able to shake Lung off. So Lung's still getting bigger and stronger. He's got his like fucked up four-way mouth, the one, and his senses
He
are
looks
like
like an
off the
elite from
chart.
Halo.
Yeah. When the ground starts to crack open, Lung thinks of Daichi and his gun. And Lung squares up as Leviathan charges him. And the ground just like totally splits open and water's rushing in. And as the two of them tussle, Leviathan is like trying to drag Lung down into the chasm. But Alexandria shows up and joins back in on the fight.
Yeah, yeah. They fought to keep Leviathan from continuing his rampage, to keep him from carrying on until he'd wiped away all of Japan. Lung just fought. Fought for minutes, hours. Fought until the four wings extended from his back, and he burned so hot that steel-like flesh just beneath Leviathan's skin was blackening and charring to ash by proximity alone. Until he was larger than Leviathan, until even Alexandria hesitated to get too close. For that indeterminate period of time, Lung was king of the world.
Wow. But unfortunately, he kind of starts to weaken near the end of the fight, and the ground just completely falls out from under him. But
I never understood
luckily,
if this was because the other capes were gone and he was drawing off of them or what, but like, I don't know. Always
yeah,
seemed
I'm
odd
not
to me.
exactly sure, but there must have been some sort of like mindset switch. But luckily Leviathan when the ground breaks, Leviathan decides to flee from the fight. So Lung lets himself sink, and he's like feeling a lot of feelings and despair, and Alexandria finds him at the bottom of the ocean and pulls him up to the surface. And then we're in August 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So Lung is in the CUI prison. It's like a high security pit in the ground that they put him in, and he's been here for a year and a half, which is crazy. Like, I don't know. He's got a very strong mind to be able to have handled this much isolation, for sure.
Well, it also
Like,
kind of explains why he's a lot like crazier later.
yeah, he is. Um, so since he's like in this pit and he has nothing to fight, his power is just completely out of his reach. Every 14 days, Tong Ling Ta, another a stone power cape, opens up the communications between him and the Yangbon. And he's expecting it when his legs are like trapped inside the stone and two of the Yangban descend down into his cell. And they're wearing identical uniforms with numbers on them instead of names. And they ask him the same questions they always do. So first they ask if he'll join them, and then they ask what he had said to the American heroes, which he thinks to himself what he had told the heroes was that they should give up. The Endbringers can't die. Like, there's absolutely no point fighting them. But he stays silent when the Yangban ask him this. And then when they tell him that he's going to have to stay here until he answers, he tells them that he will join. And so they're obviously shook, but they aren't happy when he says he's only cooperating to get out. And I have a quote here.
We need to hear the right answers before we can go any further. We will come again in 2 weeks' time, and we will ask you again. If you give us the answer we require, we can move on to the next step. And Lung thought, carry down the chain of questions, steps, and procedures until I fail. You will break me and brainwash me until I am one of you.
So he thinks to himself that the next time they come, he's going to accept the offer, and afterwards he will kill whoever he needs to in order to escape. Dun dun dun. That's like how most of his chapters end, is he's like, I'm gonna kill someone.
Yeah.
So now we are March 2011. Oh my gosh, we're up to date with the story.
And it's the shortest section, I think.
Yeah, it is. So Bakura is insulting Lung and his gang choices, and she asks him what he even has to show for it. And he says he has fear, and when Bakura disagrees that she doesn't fear him, he's like, you will.
Oh, you will be.
Oh, you will. So Lung explains that there is the fear of the unknown, and then there is the fear of knowing. And he says the former will end when the subject has answered, but that the latter will just feed itself and become stronger and stronger when you fight it. Sounds like somebody's power. Interesting. And he says that the Asian bad boy's name is a reminder that he took this gang, like he defeated them and took it over, and so it's a reminder to everybody that he could do that again. Which, you know, it makes sense. I also was very critical of the name of this gang when we first opened up.
I will say, Kevin found it extra funny because apparently there's like a type of person, like, you know how like a chav is like a type of British person? Well, there's a type of person where like I think like ABB is like the abbreviation for it.
It's an Asian bad oh man, what is it? Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, so Bakura asks why the heroes don't stop him, and he says that they're basically fine to leave him for now, when he's just mainly inflicting on criminals and minorities. And I have a quote here.
And the fact that you, a half-breed, recruited me, a half-breed, and built a gang of a bajillion different races, it's totally not a Freudian thing. Trying back to some childhood issues. No, Lung growled.
So she asks what the road ahead looks like, and he says that he has enemies that have won against him that he's going to be defeating in turn. And she asks about Leviathan, but he's like, no, I didn't lose that one. And he thinks to himself about the bodyguard and the Yangban. So Lung tells Bakura that she will join him because she thinks like he does in terms of power and fear, and she agrees. So now we're July 2011. Oh my gosh, and we're finally back. Amelia has just finished explaining to Teacher what she discovered about how powers work, but Teacher isn't totally convinced. he's like, there's still holes in the story, like what's going on with the Endbringers, and Amelia agrees that she doesn't know what the fuck's going on there. Hold on, I have to sneeze.
Man, the worst thing is a sneeze that never happens, and you're just waiting there, and it never resolves.
So, teacher says that there's nothing they can do about it anyway, stuck in the birdcage. And Marquis says that it's at least food for thought. So Marquis and teacher start discussing dentistry in the prison, but they're interrupted by another inmate telling the group that there's big news on TV. So they all gather around, see the news that I won't repeat because we've seen it 20 times now about
You can
the
call me
Alexandria.
Weaver.
Oh God! Imagine if the story was exactly the same, but all took place in England.
Well, it was. I was dual making fun of the one chapter where the previous chapter's audiobook where I kind of think that You Can Call Me Weaver is read out weird, but also there's a Moby Dick audiobook version that I've only heard like the very beginning of, but like this unimposing old man is like, "You can call me Ishmael,"
Oh yeah.
and it's like, wow. That line is a lot less cool when that old man is saying it.
When it's when the voice. That's how I feel about the Great Comet original cast. The writer of the Great Comet casts himself as Pierre, and he kind of sounds like that.
That's hilarious.
This is just not as effective when it isn't Josh Corbett.
Yeah.
Pierre comes off a lot weirder. He's like,
Oh boy.
he's like, I would propose to you right now. So yeah, there's like this big news on TV about Alexandria and this girl named Taylor and turning from Skitter into Weaver, and we really don't get this. An inmate asks Lung if this is the girl that beat him, and Marquis is like, shut up. Marquis is such a good friend to Lung. But someone says that if things were so bad in the Protectorate, then they should all get to appeal their cases, which is like very funny because I can imagine somebody saying that and then everyone's like, yeah, but like, do you actually think that's gonna happen?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Amelia's hands go to her mouth when Taylor reveals her new costumed identity, and Lung like immediately recognizes the lines between Amelia and Taylor as two sides of the same coin. And teacher asks Lung if it's reassuring that Taylor was able to take down Alexandria since she had defeated him. Which he kind of just ignores. And as Lung listens to Taylor talk, he says he was stronger. He said she was stronger before, but teacher disagrees with him. I have a quote here.
Noble, Marquis said. Foolish at the same time, but the line between the noble and the fool is a thin one, or even a matter of perspective. On this we may agree, Lung rumbled.
So, as the broadcast ends, they hear Canary singing throughout the birdcage, and Marquis says that he thinks singing for Alexandria's death is undeserved. He has really little respect for people who don't stick to their code and who are wafflers. So teacher asks if this applies to Weaver, and he kind of defers to Amelia for her opinion.
Amelia frowned. She's both? She stuck to her own personal code, even when it made her a traitor. I see, Marquis mused, rubbing his chin. Lung frowned. All nonsense, and none of it mattered.
I just think Lung is so funny. I had to like not pull every time it was like Lung like thinking something sassy to himself about whatever other people are saying.
Yeah.
None of it mattered. All nonsense. So Lung is relieved to leave the conversation when teacher pulls him aside to offer using his power on him. And Lung's like, fuck that. But teacher says that if Lung's power didn't require him to be in a certain mental state to activate, then he wouldn't have been captured in the first place. And teacher says he can help break down that barrier.
At the cost of my identity, Lung said. No. A temporary cost of willpower, teacher said. I should make a temporary cost of willpower.
Yeah. So they enter teacher's cell block, which is
By the
silent
way,
and
Greg
eerie.
had said, waffle on your code, get pancaked.
um, they go into teacher's cell block, which immediately demonstrates what that temporary cost to their willpower looks like. They're kind of all like zombified. Some are doing better than others. Like some are able to like read or watch TV, but some of them are like just like sitting there stimming. And teacher's like, don't worry about these guys. This is totally, totally different than what it would be like for you.
You know, I'm thinking of Sydney Sweeney in season 1 of White Lotus going, he's fine! He's in there stimming!
Oh my god, true. Oh, god, that show is so funny. So teacher asks Lung if he'll keep a secret from Marquis, which he does agree to. And he has one of his minions named Trickster, type a sequence in on the TV, which pulls up a face of a man named Saint. When the PRT had spoken to Saint about being able to take over Dragon's tech, he was apparently able to open a channel into the birdcage. So fuck the PRT, like again. Like not only doing this horrible, awful thing to one of their most lowly and lowly, Jesus.
Loyal.
Their most loyal and instrumental of people in their organization. But like this piece of shit,
Yeah.
they deserve bad things. So yeah, they are able to communicate in code with him by just like turning on and off the TV over and over, which I assume they're using Morse code or something, but
Yeah, maybe
teacher
something more
doesn't
efficient that,
explain it.
like, one of the thinkers that teacher makes made, but, you know,
Yeah.
they're doing something.
And I have a quote here.
He can't rescue us or empty the bird cage, but we could do something. We could communicate with the outside world, and with the hypothesis that Amelia has posed, well, that's a world-changing set of information, don't you imagine? Lung didn't speak. The alternative, Lung, is that we unlock your power and we use other information that Saint has collected through his back door. We use it to leave the birdcage. To escape? Teacher shook his head. We wait, and we let things develop to the point that they are willing to open the door and let us go for assistance we can give. Dragon has files indicating scenarios in that vein.
Wow. He wants things to get worse? This piece of shit.
And,
so,
again, this is like a double whammy. It's just like you said, he wouldn't have that dragon information if the PRT hadn't sold out and gotten Saint, you know?
Yeah. It was pretty fucked. The whole thing. But it's like, how are you guys so stupid?
Yeah.
I don't know. So Lung thinks that this isn't likely to happen, but he does generally agree that he'll go along with teacher's idea. So teacher again tries to offer his power. He's very pushy. And Lung again declines and says he will still be his bodyguard when they get out. And he clarifies that if he does try to use his power on him, that he's gonna be killing him. So, teacher says they'll request Saint scrub the footage of the conversation between themselves and Amelia and have him help sour things out in the real world a bit to like push their plans along, which is just, again, come on, guys.
Yeah. Saint
Lung.
fucking sucks.
He sucks so bad.
Like anyone who
Like,
like I know there's a contingent of people who are basically like Saint was right, and they're like unironically like, oh, they had to stop Dragon because Dragon was too much of a threat. But like, Saint
what?
fucking sucks. I hate
No,
Saint.
I like I like Teacher, even though Teacher's super evil and awful. I just think he's funny.
I
But I just cannot get on board with Saint it to any degree.
I think Teacher is a great villain because he's the
I think
type of
he's a
guy
great
who I want
villain.
to personally kick his ass.
Yeah, and he also is like being like we're gonna make the world even worse than it is because we want to get out of prison is different than like Saint is in the real world. Saint doesn't need anything. He just is a piece of shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he says, "Oh, we'll just have Saint like kind of push things along and just make the whole situation worse." And Lung leaves while thinking to himself that after fulfilling things with Teacher, he is going to kill him as well. So he returns to Marquis, and when Marquis silently pours his tea, he has a moment of fondness for him and considers telling him what just happened, but he ultimately decides to stay silent.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the chapter.
It's very sad. He could have connected with his good friend
I know.
Marquis.
I know. It's very sad because it's like, to me, like this last vignette, like, but Lung's personality, Lung's just like is allowed to be himself a lot more. Like he's generally like talking more and feels like more comfortable, I feel like in his interactions. And even like the more like negative interactions with Teacher, not just like the positive ones with Twist, like it's clear that he's like in a lot better of a place than he's been in the past. And so it's like sad that he's not like pushed back past that like final barrier, and like actually connect with Marquis.
Mm-hmm. I was also I wanted to pull some lines from the chapter before we move on, like in the Leviathan portion when he's talking to the Sentai Elite woman. She goes, "Are you fighting?" And then the only thing he says is yes. And then she's like, "You're a Yankee? No. You're a villain? I am me."
Yeah. It's just other people piss him off so much all the time.
And like he does save this woman from getting swept away by a thing. Um, but he's also when she asks why he's back here and he says he's waiting, he tells her she should be fighting.
Yeah, he's like, you should be fighting. And she's like, yeah, so should you. And he's like, no, I have good reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I like this chapter.
Well, she
Like I
doesn't. She
said.
doesn't tell him to fight. She actually yells, "You're gonna die!" when he starts approaching. Anyway,
Yeah,
which
I
I
don't know.
found very
I like this
funny.
chapter. I think it's I like I said, I feel like Lung has like a really distinct voice. Um l- just the way that he kind of interacts with the world or whatever is very he's always waiting. He's always biding his time. So I don't know. It's interesting to be in his head.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I think it's like a treat chapter. Like,
Hmm.
you can't have every you can't have big crazy fights all the time, but we get to see a historical previously fought fight that
Hmm.
like we now understand the stakes of. If we had chronologically lost and seen this at the start, we'd just be like, okay, so he fights this guy, but like,
He fights this guy, he doesn't even win. What a loser.
what a loser. But when we see it with the context, it's like, wow, that's kind of incredible.
Yeah, he was able to go toe to toe with Leviathan, and he determines. I don't know. It's just he's got a lot of like intuition about about when to fight and when to not. And so when Lung says they cannot be beaten, I just kind of believe him.
I I mean, I guess I see what you're saying. But I think that the parahumans with the right,
Yeah, I think
I
if there
think they
was
could defeat
more,
one.
I think if there was more complicated powers going on, then for, but I think like in his mind, like it's he's very much a brawler.
Right, right.
And as far as brawling goes, yeah, there's no way. You have to get past
You'd have to
like
have
the
like Lung
normal
pin him down so
physical.
that Citrine could like disperse his core or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
Things
think
would
it's
have to
just
get a
like
lot
if
more
you bring the
complicated.
kinds of capes who can kill Endbringers to the fight, they'll often get Shrek'd. Like, I don't know. I feel like whenever any of those like phasing, like Citrine or like Flechette or whoever go into those fights, like they get they get pinned down or knocked down pretty quick.
Yeah, they're tiny, and I feel like Leviathan or the other Unbringers, like they know who is a threat at any given moment.
Yeah. And they can usually like calculate, okay, I can like feint that things are going bad and like let this thing hit me. And because we see that happen with Leviathan fighting Arms Master, where it's just like, oh no, I'm losing. He's just like, nope,
He's like, I'm losing. Oh, beating me. And
stop beating me.
stop beating me, Magna. Anyways, stop beating me, Arms Master. Um, do you have anything, any final chapter thoughts?
No, other than I just flash back to death to the fourth house.
Oh my God. Um, did you want to talk about arc stuff?
Yes, this was a great, like an excellent, like the previous chapter was really good at wrapping up stuff in like the short term, and this was good at like opening a can of worms and giving us like backstory too, and like
Yeah.
again, like I said, just like treats. This was just all treats as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah, and it's good setup for later because we see, okay, so teacher is planning on pulling a what is it called? Birds of Prey. What was that stupid movie with all the villains? The
Uh
DC one where they break them out of prison and then they
oh
fight with the good
yeah,
guys.
the it's like the other Suicide Squad one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Suicide Squad Birds of Prey. That's what it is. Yeah, this was like a big Suicide Squad moment where they're like,
It's funny how
aha,
you've seen more
we
comic book
just,
movies than me, I think.
I have. We'll just make things, we'll just wait till things deteriorate enough that the heroes let us out of the birdcage. And apparently this is something that, um, they have like justification for because there's some sort of plan that Dragon put together for in case that needs to happen if things deteriorate enough. So yeah, the bad guys. It's foreshadowing. Bad guys might get busted out, and if they do, Lung says he's gonna kill Teacher. Hope that happens.
Oh, Lung.
Oh, Lung.
If only the teacher dies.
It's also like a good chapter where Taylor is referenced multiple times, like from Lung's perspective, but Taylor's not in this chapter. Holds Taylor, uh, he holds a huge grudge against Taylor because he feels like she beat him, which she did, but that she beat him with like dirty tricks and stuff. Which I don't know if they were dirty tricks. Like I said, I think Lung just has like a different idea of what fighting should be. Um, he's very very brawler minded.
Yeah, it's it's weird. Like I think he would respect like the fight he had with Kaiser a lot more even though
Yeah, for
Kaiser was
sure.
also doing stuff that I would say is more like normal dirty tricks in terms of like stabbing the ordinary gang members through the feet, even though they really weren't involved in the fight. He's just hurting them because they're associated with Lung, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I think that he's a lot more comfortable with fights like that rather than bugs in eyes move.
Yeah. Touch bug to eye.
Poisoned bugs in eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
It also, I don't know exactly, like he doesn't reference a lot of drug type of stuff in here, but I mean, it could have been
Oh,
triggering
maybe
to
there's like
some
a
degree
weird.
being forcefully drugged again.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe there's like a weird association there. Although
Yeah.
it's super like it's in his own drug factory.
Yeah, yeah. It's in his own drug factory, and then he's forcefully drugged. Um, and
You know what he
I
learned back in the
assume that
90s?
there's
He learned that drugs are pretty cool.
drugs. Drugs are pretty cool. They give you power. They give you magic powers.
Yeah. And he's never
Um,
questioned it since.
okay, well, do you want to talk about the characters?
Yes. So first we see the Doctor and Contessa, and
Mhm.
by extension, I think it's worth mentioning actually that the boys. The
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
boys.
The boys. We got our cute little gang of idiots. Like I said, they are teenagers, okay? They're overly confident teenagers because
They are
seemingly
real
like
anime characters though.
yeah,
They run in and they're like, ah, we got him. And then like when
we
the strongest one is defeated, for some reason their choice is to all run in.
they're all run in. They're not very smart. Lung thinks that they're not very smart and that they don't know how to pick their battle, which is what he thinks about everybody. But this one particularly, just Contessa just fucking demolishes them, and they're like, "Yeah, let's go." It's like they're like overly confident because I feel like they've never. It seems like they've never been in a cape to cape fight before, except like maybe some like minor altercations, and so
I
they're
doubt
like
they've ever
they're
fought
like
another cape.
yeah, they're like very confident that because they have powers that they're gonna win.
And like their powers,
Um.
they're not like the worst powers in the world. They're not mush, but like they're not good.
Ren's power is one of the worst. Like I would say like there's Mush and then there's Barker and then there's Ren.
Yeah, Barker's power is pretty dang weak.
Yeah, Barker's power sucks. So I would say definitely like bottom 15 so far. He just like sucks and blows really, which is like
I feel like it
as you can
could be
see
good if
can
you
be
gave like a
easily taken
smart person.
advantage of.
Like if you gave a
Yeah.
smart person this power, it could be good. Where and like Daiichi's, it's not necessarily like bad. It's just like there's so many better powers. Like there's so many people who
Yeah.
could just like Shrek both of them before they do anything. Like
Yeah.
Taylor. Like Taylor could just like cover them in bugs.
He could just cover them bugs on his, and it seems like needs. I don't know. It was unclear to me whether Contessa was hitting, like throwing something at his head and then hitting, like basically like the, oh my gosh, the Corona. What is it called?
Corona
The
plancha.
part. Yeah,
No,
I was
I think
unsure
it's
if he
just
was
the
doing
distraction
that
of
or if
being
he was
hit
just
like
losing
made his
concentration.
concentration go away. I think that he
Yeah.
needs to concentrate for it, so being covered in bugs would like diffuse his
Yeah.
power. And
Right.
then
Right.
like the what is the suck guy gonna like suck them, but he would how would he get the ones on his back?
He's gonna suck the bugs, but then the bugs will be in his throat.
Yeah. I think that might be
I mean, I guess
like
he
a
could
suck
blow the bugs
dimension
away
inside
pretty
him like in
good.
like a Kirby.
Yeah, yeah. I think that he could blow the bugs away pretty good, but then the bugs could just go behind him
Yeah.
and then like bite his neck a lot of times.
I like that the one who translated the English was named Hisoka, because that's
Mhm.
the evil clown from Hunter x Hunter.
Oh my gosh. It actually was him. It was crazy.
Yeah, he shows up for this.
He showed up for this. Yeah, what else to say about the boys? Kind of stupid. They're like they seemingly are like people like aren't doing very well well, this was Lung's perspective at least. Like he like didn't want to commit to school and he didn't feel like he was like smart enough or committed enough to do well there, and so like they kind of on this bad behavior, and they're like, oh, we're gonna specifically I do want to say there's this line where Daiichi says this is our springtime, and um Kenta is like, yeah, he's right, like this is our time of freedom and doing what we want before we can't anymore, and like that's definitely something that he craves. But probably all of these boys are in similar situations.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine they each have their own, like Yu Yu Hakusho backstory where it's like, oh, well, this guy's a delinquent, but he has to work really hard for his younger brothers because his sick mom is their only parent and she can't work either, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, and
Anything
now
else
they're
to say?
dead because
And now
Contessa
they're
like
all yeah,
burnt their
yeah, yeah,
face.
and every single one of them died. Very traumatic.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see
Now we can talk
here.
about the Doctor and Contessa.
Yes, the Doctor and Contessa, and by extension, the people trading powers and money for drugs. Um, I feel like the methods of Cauldron are like I know that they were like, oh, we'll use Contessa to whatever this, that, and the other thing. Like they could have random sample handed out powers and done like a less like rampantly evil, like they just always maximize the bad. It almost seems like they're like, we're gonna kill the local street punks. We're gonna like feed the drug trade in Asia. We're gonna like help the nationalists in like Japan, China, Germany. Like they
Yeah,
just help the evilest people, and it's like I think that actually you could have less capes killing each other off if you weren't helping these weird ultra nationalist groups and things.
yeah,
And
you're right. If they were just like randomly dropping them on people, they would have done a lot better. Like think about the kiddos in the fucking the Travelers gang. Okay, three of them were evil, and then the rest of them are like fine.
but if
Which
you
is
think
like
about it,
better
like,
odds than what we have now.
and if you think about it, like Sundancer's power is really good against the Endbringers. If you were to do something like have because I know it's bad against Behemoth, and she's not really suited to fight the Seamerg. But the Leviathan fight, if she had like a cape who could like grant her like what's her name, the evil white supremacist cape who can grant minor powers, like a power like
Yeah,
that, where
yeah.
they grant like defenses to her to not get washed away by the waves, and then like she just actually burns up Leviathan. Like she's the type of cape where if they were to do some setup, like she could get some real stuff done. But
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But instead, we're like, let's trade hundreds of bricks of cocaine for powers to these people.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know what these bitches be doing. They're so dumb. It is notable that like Contessa didn't realize that that Kenta was still dying. I can only assume because of like whatever blind spot she got from his trigger event.
yeah.
Um,
Well, what I had always assumed was that because she won the fight and she knew he wasn't like going to fight them and he got
mhm.
powers, it was better to have one more person with powers around.
Okay, that could have been it too.
Like because, he does end up being very useful against, say, Leviathan.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. Let's see here. So, and then the Doctor and Contessa themselves, do we have anything more to say about them? I mean, Contessa's fight here is excellent. I mean, it's just like...
She does a really good job. It's pretty fucked. Like, the fact that she, like, is standing on Kenta's head for, like, a big portion of it while he's suffocating in...
Well, the main part that's fucked as far as I'm
cocaine.
concerned is, like, she could have told her power, let's knock all these guys out, or whatever. And, like, maybe given them concussions, but not super murder them.
She did decide to murder them all. And she asks permission. It's not like the doctor is like, kill them all. She's like, may I please kill them? And she's like, yes, of course. So, I don't know what that's about, Contessa, but, a little bloodthirsty. But yeah, and she, like, the way that she, like,
Bloodless,
kills these
thirsty.
people... And then she kills most of them really quickly, but then leaves one of them to suffer for a long time. Like, I don't know how long it is, but it seemed like at least, what does he say at the very end?
He says Kento waited, holding Arata's hand as the boy slowly died. Then he straightened.
Yeah. So she, like, chose to just, like, not finish him off before leaving. Because she's kind of a bitch.
Well, the thing that I'm thinking is, like, it's so illustrative. If she can kill them without spilling blood, she could have resolved the situation without killing them. In my opinion.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, she could have. But she just decided to
She
kill
could
them
have
all
thought,
anyways.
like, what's the thing that I can do that will cause them to be afraid and run? Like, she could have, I think, like, gotten so many alternate outcomes, and she just went for... the simplest, quickest one.
She is notoriously uncreative.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll see more later, for sure. But I guess this is, like, pointing us in that direction. She just is not very good at it's like ironic because her power is a problem-solving power, but she's not good at problem-solving.
Well, it's like it's also a very, like, cool scene and show of power. So, like, that flashy portion of it can mask the stuff that we're talking about, because it's like it's like this could have, like, so easily been, like, really different, and she could have, like, if she had thought ahead too, she might have thought, like, oh, we need to, like, change how the meeting is being set up or whatever. But for all we know, this could have been a ploy to show off her strength to the three businessmen.
Yeah.
And, like,
that
just using the 8 kills as, like grist, basically, for that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, Contessa.
Oh, Contessa, Jesus Christ. Let's talk about the Ying bomb.
Yeah, they suck.
Yeah, is this the first time we're really seeing them? I was having, like, they go to the Leviathan, they go to the Endbreaker fights.
I think this is the very first time we've seen them.
Okay.
They were not at the Leviathan fight.
So this is like a cult situation, where...
A political cult.
It is like a very, very strong cult where they have no sense of identity. They don't have names anymore. They're all just nuts. And they all, like, share their powers. So they captured... do they work for the government?
Yeah, they work for the Chinese government, which is different than the one that we have in real life.
That's what I was thinking, because it's the CUI, and I was like, I don't think this is a thing, and I was trying to, like, look at it, but yeah, it just seems like they have their own. It's a different situation, and
well, I think the introduction of Scion in the world changed, like, enough things that, like, China's trajectory was, like, massively altered.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so they
probably not helped by goddamn Contessa and the Doctor.
So they apparently arrest people. I don't know if Lung did anything wrong to get arrested. It didn't seem like it because he was just like with his mom at this point in time. It didn't seem like he had been like doing crime yet.
It seems as though they just captured him because he has powers, and
Because he has good
they like were
powers.
able to ascertain that from like previous spying. Because they
Right.
don't just have like normal spy assets; they have parahuman spy assets.
Right. And they're willing to go and capture people and keep them in prison for years and years until they finally give in and join their cult. So that's pretty awful.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty heinous. And they don't do like it they didn't, at least for him, it's not like an explicit torture situation, but um
Well, solitary
he was
confinement is considered torture by a lot of people.
right, but he wasn't put in solitary confinement from the get-go. He was put in solitary confinement after being in like their normal prison, and
True.
then they, I guess, realized that like he was super strong, and then they put him in the solitary confinement. So I guess like they normally keep people in the normal prison until they give in, which
Until
is
they're
like,
given a reason not to. I think part of it is
yeah,
that they realized that he needed other people as fuel for his power, and so being
yeah,
isolated was the thing. So yeah, they weren't just putting him in solitary for the purposes of torturing him with solitary confinement. You're right.
right. Yeah, they were just like, I don't know. They don't care. They just do whatever I guess, what they quote unquote need to do. But yeah, they suck, and he obviously, um, he didn't kill them all because they still exist. But he obviously got away.
I would
So
imagine that it's one of those situations where he just killed the people who are directly in front of him.
who were like right in front of him, yeah, and then just like left, which is the way to go. That's what he learned from Contessa. Just kill everybody that you can see in your vision.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way. Yeah, we'll see more from the gang, but they're interesting. I like them as like a piece of world building, because it is like a realistic thing I think that would happen in the scenario um that there's people with superpowers and stuff.
Yeah, and it's also like the powers that are written to make the way they operate possible are like on a level when I like already know that they exist, they seem basic, but like they're super creative in my opinion. Like I
Hmm.
haven't
They're
seen
really good fighters.
yeah, I haven't seen another um like superhero or magic system where it's something like this, where like the way that they have the like distributed powers and whatever. So
Hmm.
I
Oh
I
my
mean, can you
gosh.
think about? I mean, there may be other examples. I just can't like come up with.
No, but I'm thinking that what they wouldn't do to have Darla from Ward on their team.
Oh yeah.
That would
Oh,
honestly, God, if they could get a hold of Darla, then they would really pop off. That would be crazy.
I would really
Have
help them
everybody
out.
in one linked network.
Exactly. My word. It
Yeah,
might.
and I feel like hers, you could like, it's like one of those powers that you could split up, but then when you like be, it's like everybody has smaller powers or whatever because they're
Mhm.
all separated, but then with the power that she has, then it probably would like link them just as strongly as her original power.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And part of what I'm thinking is it has its ups and downs because her power, if somebody gets hurt, they all feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's crazy. All
Um.
right.
Yes, Marquis and Amelia. I feel like you should speak on these.
Marquis and Amelia are like trying to push this knowledge that they have about uh the way that the powers work, and they talk specifically, teacher references like the entities or whatever. Um, they're like still kind of keeping it under wraps for us from the reader from the reader's perspective. Like, I mean, there's obviously like we have learned information, but it seems like there's more that we haven't heard. Um, and I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to do because the way that Long references it at the very end of the chapter is like he says, "Teacher is working to undermine everything you and your daughter are striving for," Lung thought. So, like, what are they striving for specifically? It's just to like
Well,
tell
Amelia
everybody
wants
what's
to
happening.
communicate the information of like the end of the world to people to stop it, and
Yeah,
teacher wants it to progress to the end of the world. So they are at
right,
direct odds.
right. Yeah. I don't know. I like Marquis and Amy's dynamic. It's definitely smoothed out. They seem to be a lot more comfortable with each other now. When Lung comes back, they're like drinking tea together and talking to each other casually. And I don't know. It's like they've kind of been working on their relationship dynamic, which is, in my opinion, it's a good thing, but it's complicated, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then like Marquis is, like I said, I feel like Marquis is like a really good friend to Lung. I think he like genuinely cares about him and is like looking out for him. And so it's just kind of sad that Lung isn't able to reciprocate in the way that even he himself wants to reciprocate.
So yeah.
It is sad. Yeah, I think that's all. Amy this chapter like talks about Taylor and how she has like the correct take that Taylor will stick to her code even if it makes her a traitor. Taylor
Yeah.
will do what she wants to do no matter what. Okay, that's the real lesson. And she will
So
make it work with her code.
I did want to move back to the Amelia's hands went to her mouth. Marquis glanced at Amelia. Lung took that glance in all its import. The two girls were opposite sides of the same coin.
Hmm.
I just wanted to talk about them in that way because you had brought it up in your uh, summary,
Overview.
but
Yep.
hadn't really talked on it. I mean, they kind of are like. How does he see them as two sides of the same coin? I do, but I'm not sure.
I think he sees them as two sides of the same coin because of her being like the very basic part of her being somebody who was a hero and then turned into a villain and then vice versa. Um, but I also, like I said before, I think that Long has really good intuition, so he might be picking up on something else as well.
Yeah, I kind of. Yeah, I think that there's an aspect of that, but it's just hard for me to exactly put my finger on what he means by that.
Yeah. I think that he's picking up on something emotionally, but that yeah, he doesn't really clarify things. He's a straightforward man.
Yeah. Um. All right. Well, we can move on from that. Caught my attention.
Yeah, want to talk about teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teacher's evil.
I think teacher sucks. I
Oh,
mean,
we
like,
knew
I
that
think he's
scene.
a really good character with a really punchable face.
Yeah,
Um,
I love teacher.
but I got a big a grudge against him for sucking. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Stop sucking so much, teacher.
Yeah, he is interesting to me. I really like his power. Like I would personally like to have this power, I guess.
His
It's
power
one
is
of those
pretty
weird
cool.
powers. Yeah, it's one of those weird powers where he is never he's not the one who's capable in a lot of ways. Like he is making other people capable, but he doesn't actually get the tinker powers. And I would assume he has like a low level tinker power like that helps him to try to like manipulate other people, but that could also just be his general personality. It could be that he has no thinker power at all either.
Yeah, I think it's more interesting if he has no thinker power.
Yeah, and you can see like the way that he tries to pull people in, he's not exactly great at it. Like he does
Even though he's
get
done it a
exactly.
lot. I mean, it's that thing where it's like, I feel like this is like really common in real life where you'll see someone who's really shameless and it's like they're not good at what they're doing, but they do it a lot and it works some of the
Yeah,
time.
it works some of the time, and I think that it's kind of like from my perspective, what happened in this scene is he offered Lung a choice that he was presenting it to Lung as if there were two choices, and that one of them was one that Lung would obviously say no to, but which was obvious, which was, him altering his power. But I also think that teacher is genuinely like so desperate to do it that it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall sometimes. So it's like he got what he wanted out of the interaction. Like he got Lung's allyship and to agree with him on his plan because he had presented the alternative that was like completely not what Lung wanted. But also, I think that he, under all of that, wanted Lung under his throne and is probably disappointed that he didn't get that. But he just was like I said, he was like way too thirsty about it.
If Long was
And we'll see.
a real stone cold killer, he would have taken teacher out right then and there.
Yeah, yeah.
Do
It's
us a
like
favor.
teacher. I feel like teacher is like battling himself with like trying to do these master manipulations, but also not being able to help himself from like, please, 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 please let me touch you.
Oh man.
Like he's like having to fight himself to like not be like crying to everybody, like, please let me do it.
Man, it makes me think of like a Tim Robinson character where
Oh my God, teacher's a Tim Robinson character.
it's like, but you're gonna let me do it, right? Please!
My God.
I'm doing a thing! You gotta let me do the thing!
Let me go, let me go, let me go. Yeah, that's kind of what I pick up from him. I think that he is a good manipulator, but that he's so desperate that he can't hold himself back.
Also, like,
And
it does
it,
seem to hamper him that he's like an insufferable asshole. Like, people automatically
yeah, I
pick up,
think
like,
so.
ugh, he had to try and sound smart here, and we hate him.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody likes teacher. Oh, yeah, he's got a big plan going on. See if that ever comes. Probably not.
No plans will
Um,
ever come to pass.
oh my gosh. Okay, well, let's talk about Saint. I had just threw him on the list. I forgot about him. Saint's a piece of shit.
We all hate Saint in this household.
We all hate Saint. It's like so funny because Saint is like one of I'm trying to think if who else we have talked to that's like an unempathetic character, but that's not based in like bigotry. Because there's a lot of like unempathetic characters that are like oh my gosh, the wolf one. What's his name?
Like Hookwolf? What?
Hookwolf, yeah. Like there's a lot of unempathetic characters like Hookwolf where it's like he's unempathetic, but it's also like part of it is it's just that he's a white supremacist. But Saint just genuinely sucks. And I hate him. And there's nothing likable about him. And he's not
And it's
even
funny
like
because you love a lot of characters who I think most people
I like
find
a lot of hateable
unbearable.
characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yet I can't stand Saint. I guess he is like a bigot in a different way though.
He's a
But
bigot in
that's
a
not
way
even
that's not
what
applicable in real life.
Yeah, it's not applicable in real life, and so it's not like I can see the way that this has a negative effect on people or anything like that. Like I have no
Although we do
experience with
see his,
this.
like, the fact that even though it's like a target of one, the amount of damage he does directly and specifically because he's just like a weird, crazy bigot who
Yeah.
hates just dragons specifically.
He hates
I mean,
dragons specifically.
theoretically it's AI, but
Lord.
really it's just dragon.
Is dragons
I'm
the
Saint
only sentient
George.
AI?
I'm the guy who defeated the dragon, actually.
Yeah. But we don't really see. He's just there or whatever. Like he's on for a second.
It's so
But
funny that you're in Arc 15 of Ward right now.
oh my God, don't. Anyway, Saint, we'll see him. He'll be back. Dragon's arch nemesis, who the PRT also decided to give fucking access to their stuff to like quote unquote see if he could like utilize it or whatever if Dragon was
The
on.
PRT are so
stupid.
dumb. The guild would never
They're
make a
so
mistake
stupid.
like that.
Oh my God, I can't even. Okay, let's talk about Bakuda.
Bakuda's there for one scene. I know it's really short, but I think it's really good.
I thought it was really good because she like isn't wrong about basically anything that she says. Like she's like, so this weird thing where you like are recruiting all different types of like of mixed Asian people like has nothing to do with your personal identity problems. And
There's
he's like, no.
nothing to do with it. There's no connection here. You're telling me there's
it's just
none.
it's like so obvious that there is, and yet and he he doesn't, like I said, he doesn't give us a lot like internally, like he doesn't have a lot of he doesn't think about things super hard like that, so we don't get to hear his explanation as to why he does it. But I don't know. I agree that it sounds like something's going on there.
Pretty sus.
He's like, I just want to give everybody a place where they feel they belong. Heart, heart, heart.
Exactly. And yeah, the spillover of language from Lung to Bakuda to Taylor is like, it would be less interesting if Taylor weren't the main character, but it's good because we get to see, like, she just keeps thinking back to this, and in her mind it's Bakuda, and it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Lung. Like,
yeah,
it's another
Lung
like
at the
weird
end,
misattribution where like she thinks of everything as being Emma, but it was like a lot Sophia.
yeah, a lot of it was Sophia, and I don't know, because Lung at the end of this vignette does say like the reason I like you think about power in the way that I do. So fear and power. So he knows that like Bakuda has these ideas about fear and power, although they might not have like necessarily totally aligned with his. Because Bakuda definitely goes more towards the fear of the unknown rather than fear of fear of the known.
Yeah.
Like she's like, I think that she likes to scare people by being insanely unpredictable.
Yeah, so she takes it in that direction, and Lung is very much like from, like, that's where their ideologies differ, is that Lung is the like certainty thing, because he's like, there's a certainty that I will always come back and I will always win.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I think we can move to the final Lung.
The Lung. What do we have to say about him? I like him in this chapter. Like I said, this is like painting Lung in a much more positive light than if we were seeing the entirety of the like actions that he does on people.
I get it, but
You
I mean,
do
I
see.
will probably read a whole Lung book, a whole.
Yeah. It's very like specific. Like these scenes that we see are very like specific.
Yeah.
And the only thing that we see from him is that when he's talking to Bakuda, he has two hookers with him, and they're like scared. I don't know. They're like kind of like nervously fidgeting or whatever, and it's like just kind of like a little reminder that like, oh yeah, this guy is like generally not a good person. But I'm glad that we were able to focus on all these other aspects of him because I do think they're really interesting.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. Obviously, there's tons of bad stuff that he does in the many years, but if you like, kind of look at his early years, I think he'd be like a pretty sympathetic character in
Hmm.
like basically everything leading up to some point in uh how to say in America after he's taken over like the first gang. Like I would bet that
Right.
it's it's not that he was like nice and kind up to that point. It's that he was like more of
Yeah.
a Rachel style villain rather than a
Right,
like
right, right.
yeah.
Then like an organized crime type of villain. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like it's seemingly like he just decided to take over. He like beat the gang and then he was like, I'll just take over it and I'll just like keep doing the same shit that they were doing. And and Bakita thinks badly of this because she's like, you don't have aspirations. But I think that it's like wherever he is, he's just gonna do his thing and it's more about him personally than any type of like long-term. He's like, I just want to do my own thing, and this is the best way for me to continue getting to do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think you're probably right.
I do think he's really funny. Like the way that he he like he doesn't talk very much at all. And he's like very decisive about his words, which I think is like I don't know. I like characters like that because I'm not like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
He if he's gonna talk, he's gonna have something to say, or he's gonna be like, "No, I'm not talking."
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
I'm a yapper.
Yeah, I'm a big old yapper. He like thinks a lot of like funny like things to himself, like when teacher is like, "Oh, the we could help each other. Like the reason that I got captured is because I didn't have the brawn." And then Lung is like, "Is he implying that I'm stupid?" And like that's not what teacher's implying. But he
Yeah.
just like thinks it and stares at him. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I
Well,
don't
it's
know.
because like also Lung does like barbed comments now. He's like,
Yeah, yeah. That's why I like
"Are you barbed
oh,
commenting me? I barb comment people."
that's why I like him so much in when he's in the birdcage because he like wasn't barbed commenting before and now it's like to me it comes off like he's more comfortable with him and that people around him like these people around him out of everybody are the most likely to accept him in my opinion. Um like these are not people who have ever been able to fit in, I would say.
Yeah, and they just don't have the same compunctions that normal people would have.
Yeah.
Um.
Um, what else to say about Lung? Lung has a problem with Taylor. Lung has a
Mhm.
problem with losing. He does not appreciate losing, and he will defeat anybody he has
He just
lost to.
hears in his head a version of Greg just like going loser.
Loser over and over. It's like throughout each chapter, he's like, okay, I will have to get back at this person, and then another person defeats him, and then he like adds them to his list, and then Taylor defeats him, and he adds her to the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Typical. Um, I don't know that I have that much more to say about Lung.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about him a lot in the chapter. Like I said, I feel like he's got like good intuition. He's got like the some people have their power and their like brain mindset kind of makes their power more difficult for them to deal with. But like he has the perfect mindset for his power. He the he's able to really well gauge when he should be interacting in a fight, and that's something that he always had. That wasn't something that he got from his power. That was like the kind of probably the mindset that he was in that like uh caused his power to work like that.
Yeah, the fact that they weren't like biding their time and they weren't. they
Yeah,
should have like retreated and whatever. Which is weird
yeah,
because it's a thing where like he actually should probably retreat more than he does.
yeah. I think once he's started, it's like very hard for him to stop.
Which is
Like
also
he'll
like the whole mindset he was in at the start.
yeah, during the fight because he's like, well, I can't back out now if all these people are going in and
If
I'm
my
like the
power's
biggest and
already
the
this far
strongest.
along, I mean, I'm already in a pretty good position. I better keep
Yeah,
fighting because what if next
yeah,
time? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I feel like he would consider retreating once it started to be a loss a lot of the time.
yeah. Even though it's
Um,
clear from like backstory of other people that that is what happens, is a reasonable amount of the time, like they get harassed until like they either have to retreat, and by they I mean ABB forces, including Lung, or
uh-huh.
like they're just so like scattered from what they were initially doing that,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like he's a really interesting character. I like that. I don't know, it's just kind of Lung is the first Cape besides Taylor that we ever met. So it's like fun to like finally get his interlude and like see his perspective
And
and
honestly, for it to be such a banger, like
yeah.
sometimes like I feel like the Tattletale chapter in Arc 7 is kind of disappointing because it's like you feel like you're waiting to see from her perspective, or one
Hmm.
of the, because she's the first Undersider you see from their perspective, and it's like it kind of doesn't give a lot. You don't get that
Right.
much into how her power works. Like you don't get that much into how she feels about things in the modern day because so much of it is spent in the past. Like,
Yeah, very true. Like this chapter has it all.
yeah,
It's got it's got his trigger event, it's got his backstory stuff, how he developed from like where he was into the person that he is now, uh post arrest and bird cage. It has all of the it has like,
it has
cauldron
the Bakuda
references.
thing where it's like right before the story start, and it's like
Right.
right how he would be feeling before everything goes down, because it's like
Yeah.
in that time frame where like it's short enough that Taylor doesn't even know that Bakuda's in town yet, you know?
Yeah, it like seemingly has been like a week or two or something since he's recruited Bakida before Taylor bites his penis off. Um But yeah, it's like you get a little bit of everything. You get really good like insight into his character, you get good insight into his power and his mindset, and you get on top of that, you get the background element of the cauldron stuff, the background element of what's going on with the entities, and then the foreshadowing to future events for the people in the birdcage
And the fact
and
that
the
like
people
Lung
outside.
is like a world stage cape in terms of like not
Right.
just that he's been multiple places, but like he's at that power level. He's been saved by Alexandria. He's fought Contessa. Like he's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
at
like
these
the
like
fact that
pivotal moments.
Alexandria makes the effort to
Yeah, she
go and
fished
get
him up
him
from
from
the
the
bottom
bottom
of
of
the
the
ocean.
ocean, because he like held that fight so incredibly that like she was obviously like paying attention to him the whole time. And um yeah, oh, that scene makes me so sad. I feel like there's a couple scenes in this that like that one when he just sinks to the bottom and he just is like feeling despair, which I don't know exactly. Like I said, it's like he doesn't really explain his feelings or anything,
Yeah, let me read
but
what it says because it's pretty skint on details, but
yeah,
no, not there. Earlier, yeah. So
it's like the
it's
second scene.
up here we
I
go.
have it here.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
Um, yeah, his enemy, okay, he'd expected a feeling of satisfaction, but he knew he hadn't delivered a killing blow, that he had been been a long, long way from it, though he'd done more damage than anyone had in years. His enemy hadn't been killed. Lung had become something more terrifying than the Endbringer, but there had been nobody to see. None of the public to recognize him, to respect and fear him. He sank, feeling a kind of despair. Too tired to move, he touched the bottom. Alexandria found him in the depths and brought him to the surface. It's like so good. I loved that little part. And I don't really know what it means. Like, don't understand what he's feeling and why.
I think I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it can also just be like the come down from like having the absolute crazy high that he just had, because this was like the most powerful that he's ever been, and like he says, he's like disappointed that nobody got to see how much of a monster he became.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Kenta.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to talk about parse knowledge and world building.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much. There's so much. Like,
I'll just start with, I just want to start with the lungs trigger event because it is notable that he has a physical trigger because we like so rarely see that. But I can kind of like, every time we see it, I can kind of parse a little bit better. Okay, like he has this physical trigger.
What are the other physical triggers we can think of? Like, I can think of purity. That's it.
Purity.
It could have been mental anyway, but I think that it was physical because it gave her nutrients through the sun, which is like what she was like agonizing over. So it's like the physicality was a big deal. Oh, also Chevalier, but you haven't seen his trigger event because it's a flashback from the end of Ward.
I feel like Dauntless has a physical-ish trigger.
His is so weird. His is so like it's like
his
a one-off.
is really strange. But there is like there's like a pretty strong physical aspect because he will die if he didn't have the trigger.
I don't think that's true. I don't think Dauntless would have died even if he hadn't had the trigger event. It's that they wouldn't have been able to like save the baby.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It's like we don't see very many, so like I just wanted to like point it out because it's interesting. It's a drug induced trigger, but it has the actual powers that he gets have way more to do with the prior mindset he was in. They definitely still have that like little essence of like he gets like a big rush and like amps up and amps it up, and he's like always trying to like reach a new high to some degree. But like that has nothing to do with mindset really. It's so much more based around how he was feeling and thinking prior to the trigger, or, you know, while he's beat up by Contessa.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't triggered in that moment, then he would have died. So it counts as it was a physical trigger.
Yeah. I think so. I think like it almost feels like the physical triggers, there doesn't have to be that much of a physical component because so much of like all trigger events is like a mental. That's like part of why we went down this like pathway of like, oh man, there are just not that many physical trigger events at all. Total.
Yeah, I feel like it's just I feel like it's like the people in the world think that there's these physical trigger events, but I think what's actually happening is when there's a physical component or the trigger save somebody from getting killed in some way, like it did for Kenta, then that's the story that they are telling these people doing the research. And like that's what's actually happening. It's like a weird miscontribution.
Yeah, because sometimes the powers have to save their life as part of the trigger event.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, yes, there might be a correlation between the brawn type people and having physical trigger events, but how much of that is more personality based, that when somebody asks them about their trigger event, they would be like, oh, something fell on me and then I triggered. And they're not thinking about, well, this and this and this and this happened to me. I was in this terrible mindset, and then something happened and it pushed me over the edge. Like we would hear from a lot of the other people, like masters and tinkers and thinkers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think even if that's not implied in the text, like that feels right with how things
Yeah.
actually like work out. And like the they can't force a trigger event on most people because they need to have the trigger event like match up with their mindset pretty much.
Hmm.
So like in a way it's like, yeah, if there is this type of trigger event, maybe it lines up with like this type of mindset or whatever. And
Hmm.
they've even said like something terrible can happen to somebody, but if it's not like the right thing.
Yeah. Do we know anything about our other fire-based capes, Burn Scar and man, who's the other one that's in
With Burn Scar, we know that she had a bunch of cigarette burns down her face, like somebody had kept putting out cigarettes on her face.
right, so maybe people might consider that a physical trigger. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I feel like the academics are just confused. Like
Yeah,
I understand that for these types of capes there might be there it's probably that there has to have been a physical component for them to have triggered rather than the trigger was caused by a physical component. So like the same thing with the fire capes, there a lot of the time they would have to have fire involved for them to have triggered, but that doesn't mean that the fire caused the trigger.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, well, what else?
Um, so trigger event. Did we actually? So we talked about the text. In
Yeah, we
you had
read over
pulled
it.
the text.
It was a territory ownership.
Yeah, yeah. Let me go back up. Entities. Yes. Well, I think it's a good trigger event. Classic. Um,
Classic trigger event. He's looking through all the different worlds. He's like, "Oh my gosh, everything looks so crazy." Um,
well, it's also like we'll see later. There's like people like him who are more like attuned to a specific cycle or something. I have no idea if this is just random or if he is in some way powers related to a bloated bag of gas that floated in a
mhm.
storm.
It's funny.
I don't think he's related to the bloated bags, but sometimes when they describe a weird entity, it's like, oh, those freaks just came up with the power that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I feel like this one is a little basic. I don't think we get anything necessarily new from it, except maybe like the way that they described the last sentence. He could see what they were focusing on, seeing they were examining those possible worlds, declaring something. Ownership here, claim there, territory elsewhere. I don't think we've ever been like, I don't think we've ever heard anything like that before during a trigger event. That's very like, it's like ownership and yeah,
Intentionality, also. Like, I'm not
intentionality. Yeah.
sure, I can't remember every trigger event we've had up to now, but like I think that this like thing where it's seeing a world and then seeing all the variations and like outcomes and whatever, I'm not sure if
Hmm.
we've seen that before.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember. The trigger events are something that, ironically, they tend to slip from my mind after I read them.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like at some point we'll have to do like one of our bonuses could be like an analysis of all the like once we've hit the final trigger event, we'll do an
Mhm.
analysis of all the trigger events that
Yeah,
have happened.
yeah, for sure.
But a lot of them happen, so won't be for a bit. Um, let's see here. So the trigger event was good, and then what else? Just the Cauldron background and like seeing them like fucking mucking things up in the 90s.
Oh my
Like
god.
we mostly didn't have
Yeah.
drugs here, so they introduced a bunch
Yeah.
of drugs here.
Yeah, he's literally like he like doesn't even know what the drugs are and is like, "Oh yeah, people like aren't that into drugs here," even though he is in a delinquent gang. And yet these fuckers come in. These American-ish people come in
Well, the
and
doctor is. I thought that she is American.
yeah, the doctor's American. Contessa's sort of an American.
American by
Um,
proxy. She was adopted.
yeah. I mean, she's been in the Americas for I think the majority of her life now. How old is
Well,
she
I don't
here?
know. It's unclear because they globe hop because their like main base is in Africa on a different
Yeah.
planet. Well,
Okay, true.
alternate reality or whatever.
Right, right, right. Well, these fuckers, they come in and they push all these seemingly push these drug issues in this place that like doesn't have a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then I guess moving on to the next segment, like the Leviathan fight, just incredible. Like it's the kind of thing we don't get too many treats like this because they can't have too many big wins. But you know,
Yeah,
it's very nice to see.
yeah, I thought it was good.
Yes, I always like when I worked at my previous job to ours, and I was introducing lots of people to Worm, I would get them
Hmm.
past like Arc 8, and then as a little treat, I'd just play them just the Leviathan section of that chapter
Oh
to
yeah.
spur them on, because like
Just a little treat.
multiple people did stop like during the Arc 10, 11 ish stuff before it really transitions into being about the Slaughterhouse 9. So it's just like
Right,
I feel like that's a big drop off point for people, unfortunately.
right. Yeah, yeah. I really wonder what that's about.
I think the excitement of Arc 8 and then the like the weird format of like I want to get back to Taylor for Arc 9 for a lot of people, and then
Yeah.
Arc 10 I don't think comes across super well. I think it's one of the weaker points, even though I still like a lot of things about it. You know,
Hmm.
I just think that it was a bit of a miss with a lot of the audience.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
you're right.
god.
People don't like their mass interlude chapters either.
Yeah,
They're
it's
like,
true.
can I just skip all this?
Do I
I'm a
really need
hypocrite.
to read any of these chapters that were put in the book?
The
Couldn't
thing
I
is,
just skip the whole book?
I learned my lesson when I was 15, and everyone else here is an adult, so.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I'm assuming you mean Homestuck.
Yeah, I mean that was the last time that I did it, but I had done it before in book scenarios when I was a child. I would just like when I read Holes, I just skipped all of the flashback chapters,
Dear
and so I was
Lord,
very, very, very confused at the end.
I was gonna say like
Like
a lot of
like
the
the
book
curse has
hinges
been
on like history
broken.
repeating itself and stuff, and like how we're cursed by the race's past until we confront
Yeah,
it,
I know.
basically.
The book, unfortunately does not really hold up if you just skip all of the flashback chapters.
It's
If
a
you're just in
pretty
the
damn
current
good
time, it's
book.
very confusing. Oh my God, Greg, I'm sorry. Also, Greg said, I can't wait until I can't wait until we wait a cape whose top is made out of rubber and their bottom is made out of springs. Yes, they had a Tigger event. Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
god.
And then he said, Victoria, why? I was a stupid child, Greg, but I understand now, unlike some adults, that you can't just skip math sections of content because you're a little bit sad that you don't have your main character there.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the parts of Hunter x Hunter without Gon are still good, damn it.
Oh my god. Or people who just start on season 2. Oh my gosh.
Of which thing?
Drew started on anything. They'll be like, "Oh, I heard that season 1." Drew started season 2 of White Lotus and just didn't watch season 1 and then was like not interested in it.
He didn't know one of the main characters. He was like,
I know. Instrumental to the plot. But also, I was like, season 1 was so good.
Also,
but
like, a lot of the
other
ominous
people...
actions from one of the characters don't really make sense if you don't already know that he's kind of a weird manipulator freak. Like,
I'm also pretty sure Belinda from season 1 is going to be in season... I think I saw her, which I'm glad about because I really liked Belinda. She was like one of my favorite characters in season 1. So yeah,
I didn't even
it's
know
like
if they were doing a season 3 because it's been so long.
I think I saw recently that they are going to be doing season 3.
I
think it's
years.
like in let's see, season 3 White Lotus release.
Oh, Greg says, I read The Subtle Knife before reading The Golden Compass. That actually worked, though. It's funny because, yeah, The Subtle Knife begins from a different perspective than The Golden Compass. So you're starting the story from, like, a completely different character perspective, and he does meet up with the main character of the first book and has, like, a totally different, like, take on her. But then you get to immediately see from her perspective, basically. And she said something bananas.
Oh my gosh.
She has this thing where she can basically, like, read the truth of the universe. And, like, if she knows what questions to ask. And she asks if, she asks about her new companion. And it's like, he's a murderer. And then she goes, good, he's someone reliable.
Oh my god. Golden Compass is crazy. I was very banned from them, and I will someday read them.
They're really good, but they're really anti-Catholic, so I can really imagine why your mom specifically would not want you reading them.
Yeah, we were specifically told they were anti-Catholic. So season 3 will be out in mid-February.
Damn.
And it takes place in Thailand.
Okay. So here's the thing. This is a weird thing about White Lotus. This has nothing to do with this.
with Worm.
With Worm. But in White Lotus season 2, when I first watched it, I thought, like, wow, Aubrey Plaza's acting has gotten a lot better. I know she always kind of did the deadpan thing, but this is, like, a lot more impressive. And then I realized that she had a bunch of Botox, and then I was like, oh man, all of the neutral faces are way easier to do when you have a bunch of Botox in your face. It wasn't so much acting, and it was much less impressive. And I mean, like,
oh no,
she's still fine, but I don't really like.
I mean, I really like Aubrey Plaza, but I get like having an actor that like other people are like raving about all the time, and you're like, eh.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like Aubrey Plaza kind of has mostly played the same characters over and over. And...
oh, for sure.
I just... not that that's like... I like lots of actors like that, but I don't know.
You just want her to mix it up.
She hasn't won me over because I find April Ludgate specifically to be her most annoying character, and all her other characters are other April Ludgates.
Or just her, yeah. Alright, you want to do the audience participation? Oh wait, oh no, Greg didn't say anything new. My bad.
Oh, and I guess the final world building thing is that the goddamn open connection between Saint and Teacher because of the actions of our...
because of the actions of the VRT.
Yeah.
I would love to do... You were talking about doing Worm sequentially or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would like to do like a mapping of all of the like cause and effects that happen in this series. Like, I can imagine, like, a crazy, red string type of thing. But I think that would be really fun to do sometime, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
like a this caused this thing, and we don't see all the
yeah,
steps, but we can. There's so many this caused this.
there's so many caused by Taylor.
Yeah,
But also stuff like this where it's like there were all these different things coming together to make the world a worse place every day.
yeah, yeah. Man, these people, um, being all the characters. These people.
To these people.
All right. Well, yes, audience participation. So, 22.y, what is your favorite vignette from this chapter and why?
Hmm.
The unfortunate truth is we have no written answers, so it will be Victoria said you've got an answer, and I will also have an answer after you're done.
Whoa, you want me to go first? I like
Yes.
I like to always make my
Okay,
decisions
okay.
after
Okay,
everybody
I'll
else
go
so that
first.
I
I'll go
can make sure.
first. I accept.
Yeah, so that I make sure I don't say anything like Trickster is my favorite character. And then it freaks out.
Yeah, yeah. You've never said something horrible like that.
I've never said anything awful like that.
Um, Amy did not.
He was here as a reminder. Poor Trickster.
Yeah,
What a
yeah,
dumbass. It's like poor Trickster, but it's also like you know that he did this.
yeah. Um, so I would say, uh, my favorite vignette was, because I'm a basic bitch, the one pictured in front of you here, the two dragons fighting each other.
Hmm.
I thought the Leviathan fight was most excellent and like a payoff from a lot of different setup. And it's like, I never thought that I would get to see these two fight, and yet here we are in the future.
Hmm.
Well, the past, but
Hmm.
I was trying to, here we are in the future and it's bright reference.
Yeah, I really really like that chapter too. I like I said, like that little end piece where he's like super sad and he's sinking to the bottom, I think is really really well done. But I'll say that my favorite probably uh the birdcage one because I just think he's so funny and sassy.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
And that's what I want for Lug. I want him to be his full sassy self. And because it's like I said, I feel like he is so much closer to Happy in this chapter, and that it's like come on man, you're almost there. Like if he accepted Marquis as his friend and an ally, I think that he would feel a lot better.
I think I have increased my estimation of the first section, which I already thought was like a cool action scene, but
Uh-huh.
now it's given me a lot to think about after what we talked about how easy it would have been for her to keep them alive, and how I don't know if
Yeah.
it was part of a greater scheme to like scare those businessmen in some way and to forcing them to do some action, or
Hmm.
like demonstrating her power or whatever, but like it just seems like there's a very good chance it was just a pointless action.
Yeah, I think that there's a really good chance that she was just like she's just not creative and her default is to just kill people. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I the that honestly every single part of this chapter has warmed on me. I was very very confused the time that I read the first section. I think because they were doing a powers deal, but then he also had a trigger. I was like, wait, are these bricks like bricks of like I thought maybe that they were like a different form of the vial powers. But
Ah,
like
yes,
that
yes.
clearly wasn't what it was. But when I read it at the first, I was like very confused because he doesn't identify what the drug is, and this is essentially a powers deal, and there's all these like powder bricks in here, and
They
then
don't say it,
and
but I
then
think that the it's cocaine based on
yeah,
what it
yeah,
does
yeah.
to him.
I'm sure that I'm sure now that it's cocaine, but at the time I was like, maybe that these are the powers, and like it's just in a different form for some reason, and but then I was like,
I
well, why
dried
would
out the
Contessa
vials.
like?
I ground it into powder.
I was like, why would Contessa waste a power like on the person she's beating the shit out of? But it's okay. Now I'm older and smarter, and I understand things.
It was just worthless cocaine. Yep, yep. Hmm. Um. Well, do we have any other thoughts about this? Compliments about the vignettes that we did not. The short and
Nope,
sweet
all very
Bakudo.
good.
Yes, all very good.
All very
Um.
good. I wouldn't cut any of them.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, the next question I'm gonna copy and paste now so that it's available. It is. Which team of wards from the story would you want to join? Um, I will have to think about it, obviously.
I'll think about it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start that old outro song, and you know what? I'm gonna start up the speed draw again. Oh my
Whoa.
God, or
You guys
not?
can watch me struggle with these scales again.
Watch the struggle. And so let's have that outro music going. Think of your final thoughts now instead of when I say to.
Oh my God, I don't have any final thoughts.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to have a final thought.
Uh,
So the music that you can hear under me yapping is Imago by ScarlettXOX. You can find her at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link can be found in the stream and server description, as well as all these other links. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is the free fan-made audiobook of the entire work, audioworm.rain-online.org. I've been saying it forever, but I gotta figure out, grab the link for the other full audiobook that's completed. I don't listen to it as often, but sometimes. I think it's by Migration Broadcasting or something. Anyway, and do you have any final thoughts for the people?
My final thoughts. My final thoughts is I'm so excited to see what a great job Taylor does now that she's a hero.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Now that she can't put as many bugs in people's orifice.
Yeah.
We'll see what she'll be able to pull off.
She's gonna have to get pretty creative.
She's gonna have to get creative.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're gonna say goodbye for now. Goodbye.
All right. Good.